Welcome to Extropy on Air, the podcast from Extropy Advisors, where we dive into the world of AI, digital transformation, and the future of business. Each episode will bring you perspective from leaders, innovators, and experts across industries, all focused on helping organizations and, more importantly, people thrive in a changing world. Let's get started. Welcome back to Extropy on Air. I'm Kevin Zirkle with Extropy Advisors, and today we're venturing into what I like to call the financial engine room of every business, and that's accounts payable. And I know that's not always flashy. It doesn't have glitz and glamour associated with it. And quite honestly, all too often, it's not even viewed as strategic in some companies. But I tell you what, when it's broken, everything else feels its pain. Late payments, missed discounts, bottlenecks at month end, risk exposure. I mean, AP can either be a source of control or an absolute source of chaos for companies. So I'm really excited in this episode to have Shelly-Ann Campbell from Esker joining me. We're going to explore how Esker transforms AP from very reactive and manual, becoming something that's very predictive and compliant, and most importantly, people-friendly for organizations. So welcome, Shelly-Ann. Really excited to have you here today.
Thanks, Kevin. I'm so happy to be here. You're right. AP is often underestimated, but it touches nearly every part of a company's financial well-being. Esker helps companies bring control, visibility, and agility to an area that's often mired in spreadsheets and stress.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. So with that as a backdrop, let's start really from a current state of AP for a lot of companies still today. What do you guys see as the biggest pain points that they're dealing with?
I mean, some of the things that we're hearing that teams are still stuck with are manual invoice entry and routing, email approvals with no traceability, inconsistent application of spend policies. We hear a lot of things about long cycle times and late fees, and very limited insight into liabilities or accruals. There is just an overall lack of transparency into the process. So the problem isn't just inefficiency, it's risk, especially in today's landscape, when CFOs are under so much pressure to tighten cash and improve controls.
Yeah, without a doubt. We see that all too often. A lot of organizations we work with, their AP teams are working late every single month just to close the books. And unfortunately, a lot of times it's not just because of volume. So much of it is because of broken processes that they have internally. So let's kind of peel back a lot of those issues, and let's talk specifically about the Esker platform. What does Esker do differently in the accounts payable automation space?
So Esker digitizes and automates the entire invoice to payment workflow. I mean, this includes multi-channel invoice capture. Invoices come in multiple formats, right? Via email, sometimes they're scanned in, sometimes suppliers enter invoices through a portal. We also have some EDI connectivity sometimes in there. We also have AI-powered data extraction and validation. There's 2- and 3-way match automation as well. We also allow you to have dynamic approval workflows with escalation logic built in. Fraud alerts are another big thing that we offer, with a lot of invoices being able to capture duplicate detection. We have real-time dashboards for finance and AP teams, integrated audit trails and compliance reports. And all of this is built in for non-technical users. And that's a key item to highlight because I'm not technical, right? And most AP people aren't. The finance team doesn't need IT to adjust the threshold or to change any kind of approval paths.
Yeah, that's a really key point right there. I think that's a huge advantage. I mean, especially for really lean finance teams that are trying to move very quickly through this process. So that's good to hear. You know, one of the things that we hear a lot from customers that we might be working with is AP automation. I mean, I get it. It's something we ought to do, but there's so many platforms out there and I can't tell the difference between who's who. Can you take us through Esker's AP automation solution and how do you compare with some of the other tools that maybe are in the market today? You know, I know there's other names that are leaders similar to Esker, the Basswares and the Coopers, and even a lot of built-in ERP tools. What kind of makes you guys different?
Sure. So let's talk about some of the other companies, right? Bassware, for example, has strong invoice recognition and OCR, but it's less flexible in how the workflows are configured. Esker's UI is much cleaner, and we offer faster go-lives. Coupa, on the other hand, is very powerful, but it's complex to use, and it often requires major IT involvement and ongoing development to customize. Oftentimes, companies have to have a specific Coupa team internally to moderate the system. For ERP modules, I mean, the SAPs and the Oracles of the world, they offer basic automation, but they lack the AI configurability for workflows and the supplier-facing features, which are key. Esker provides faster deployments, much easier configuration, lower cost of ownership, seamless integration with any ERP. So that's what gives us the edge in why our tool is a much simpler tool to use.
Yeah, and I think that integration to ERP is such an important piece too. I mean, most every client we work with, they're not looking to rip out their ERP. It's never going to be replaced, but really augmenting that and really enhancing it to be able to bring value is really, really important. So it's good you mentioned that. One of the topics that always comes up, and I know it's prevalent in the AP world as well, and we've talked about it with the other modules in Esker. AI. Everything these days is all about AI. How does Esker apply artificial intelligence to make AP smarter within your platform?
Absolutely. That's a great question. So AI is integrated throughout the entire Esker platform. As an example, the invoice field extraction and learning is a key functionality that we have, where that functionality gets smarter over time. For our PO matching, even when the line items don't match exactly, the AI tool helps us to organize that data to make sure that we extract and match as much data as possible on the invoice. It also recommends approvers based on past invoice history. Anomaly detection is another one that's important, right? As I talked about before, duplicate detection and fraud risk. This anomaly detection helps to identify irregular patterns on invoices and surfaces that so that your AP specialist can take a look at that. But I think the most important part is that users stay in control. Every AI-driven suggestion is visible, explainable, and most important, overridable.
Yeah, I think that's a really important point to make. I mean, it truly is automation with accountability, but it's not automation in a vacuum. And I think having that visibility is something that makes AI a lot less scary for organizations that may be just starting to dip their toe in that area. So yeah, I think you're absolutely right there. So, one of the things that I think helps our listeners understand is, examples of where this actually happens in real life. Do you have some examples maybe that you could share with us on the Esker platform from an AP perspective from maybe a client or two that you work with?
Sure. We actually have a really good example that I think, a lot of your listeners can probably relate to. We've worked with a global logistics firm, and they have over 100,000 invoices flowing through 6 regional AP teams. As you can imagine, that's a lot of invoices and going through a lot of places. After deploying Esker, 89% of their invoices were processed touchlessly. Their cycle time even dropped from 16 days all the way down to 4. Delayed payment penalties fell by 70%, and their audit prep time decreased by 60%. Their suppliers' satisfaction improved thanks to better communication and faster payment parity. They also discovered fraud risks that weren't previously caught. Esker flagged duplicate invoices that had slipped through their old system.
Yeah, that touchless invoice percentage, 89, that's really impressive. I mean, I think that gets to the key of what AP automation is all about, really just managing by exception. Getting to that type of process really is what we mean by transformation. It's not just speed, but it's the insight, it's the control, and just as importantly, it's the trust in the application. What I like about the Esker platform and really the Esker organization, I mean, you guys are a very partner-friendly organization, and while that's important, where do you see Extropy really coming in to help Esker land properly and deliver results within these client accounts?
With technology comes process changes, right? And I think what clients will need your help to do is to define approval thresholds and matrix logic. They need to map exception workflows, right? Really think about their overall process, what it looks like now, and what they're thinking about it to look like in the future. You'll need to help them to align AP policy with the actual business needs and monitor and tune their KPIs over time. You'll also help ensure that automation aligns with their real human behavior. I mean, for example, if managers are always delaying approvals during month end, we can build in alerts or escalations that will help to keep invoices moving.
Yeah, you're exactly right. I mean, we try to work with every joint customer and really look at the full operating model, not just the platform. Too many times we see companies look at go live as really the destination. And from our perspective, go live oftentimes is just the starting point. We see far too many technology firms still today that try to be all things to all clients. And it really does impact their ability to focus on what they do best when that mentality is the core of their culture. So I certainly appreciate Esker, the partner friendly approach that they have there. As we start to wrap up today, and I certainly appreciate your time, one of the things that I always like to have any guest talk about is the impact that this has on the finance organization. So why should CFOs really care about accounts payable automation in this instance? Can you give us an idea really what the case is for the CFO?
Absolutely, especially in today's economic environment. I mean, I think there are 3 major reasons why CFOs need to pay attention to this, right? The first one is cash control. Faster invoice approvals and better visibility into the process means better cash positioning. Audit readiness is another important factor. Every invoice within the Esker platform has a traceable path. You have no more he said, she said. You can see exactly when the invoice came in, when it was approved by whom, and when it was processed into the ERP, and also when it was sent for payment. Team productivity is another big one, right? AP professionals can also focus on vendor relationships and process improvement. They're not chasing down emails, right? They're building relationships with their vendor and also looking at the process and understanding what can be improved outside of the technology to just make a better experience for all the employees within the firm. What we've seen is that CFOs who invest in AP modernization are signaling that financial control and innovation can coexist.
I think that's a really good point. And actually, we've seen some of the payback in the AP automation space. I mean, a lot of these projects are paying for themselves in less than a year. It's just time saving. It's early pay discounts. There are a lot of factors that go into to drive it. So yeah, I certainly think this is a really important function for anybody running a finance organization. Well, before we wrap up, Shelly, and I do want to give you an opportunity. I've done this in every Esker segment so far. I'm going to let you pull out your crystal ball a little bit, okay? And from your perspective, I'd love to have you just tell us what you think the future of AP is going to look.
Touchless invoice processing is one thing that we see a lot on the horizon. Every organization is looking for it. And with Esker, we're seeing that touchless processing can be upwards of 95%. Obviously, with your support and the right policies in place and the right rules and workflows built in, this can be achieved. Additionally, predictive cash flow modeling is a huge one, right? With the appropriate tools, you're able to see all the expenses that are going to be paid, the cash going through the door, and, even on the other side of Esker as well, the cash coming in. Supplier scoring based on accuracy and behavior. That's key. As, a lot of change in the economic environment and people are having to look for more suppliers and to look for their products elsewhere. That is becoming an important factor that we're seeing a lot of uptick in. And the integration with sustainability and ESG tracking. That is another key factor that a lot of customers are looking for and that we're able to offer. And with AI and Extropy's continuous improvement mindset, AP becomes a strategic lever, not just a compliance function.
Strategic lever, I love that, and actually love that so much. That might be a great topic to close on. I know we talked a little bit about some companies not viewing the strategic, but it certainly is. And I think the insight that you provided today, Shelly, is really helpful for that. So absolutely wanted to thank you for joining us. You've shown that accounts payable, it can be fast, it can be transparent and impactful when it's done right. So I would certainly encourage any of our listeners, if your AP team is currently overwhelmed or frankly under-resourced, you're not alone. Don't feel like you're alone, but you don't have to stay there. Be sure to like, recommend, and subscribe to Extropy on Air. We're going to continue to cover topics that are important to you every single episode. And in our next and sadly our final chapter in the Esker Spotlight series, we're going to explore how AI, analytics, and insights are really helping finance leaders drive the future of intelligence automation, but we're going to do it with a very human-first approach. So until then, always remember, we're always here to help you transform forward. So thanks again for joining us. And Shelly-Ann, appreciate the insight you've provided today. Thanks so much for being our guest.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks for listening to Extropy on Air. We hope you found today's conversation insightful and inspiring. Be sure to follow or subscribe so you never miss an episode, and connect with us at Extropy Advisors to continue the conversation on AI and digital transformation. Until next time, I'm Kevin Zirkle, and this has been Extropy on Air.